The plumber looked at me with an urgency that chilled my blood. "Ma'am, grab only the essentials and get out of this apartment now. Don't say a word about this to your son or your daughter-in-law. Your life depends on it." His hands were shaking as he packed his tools. That's when I realized the problem in my bathroom wasn't a simple leak. It was something much more sinister, something I never imagined I would find in the walls of the place I called home. But before I continue, make sure you're already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments, what state are you watching this video from? We love knowing how far our stories are reaching. It was just another Tuesday when my life completely fell apart. The faucet in my bathroom started dripping overnight, an annoying noise that woke me up several times. In the morning, I noticed a damp patch on the dining room ceiling, right under the bathroom. I decided to call a plumber. "He'll be there in 1 hour," the calm voice on the other end of the line informed me, when I called the number my son, Michael, had given me. At 68, I lived in a spacious house we bought with my husband decades ago in New York City. After his death, 5 years prior, our kids started moving back home. First, Michael, who said he was saving up for his own apartment in Chicago, and then Julie, who returned after her turbulent divorce, bringing only a few suitcases and a disquieting silence. When the doorbell rang, I opened the door to a man in his 50s, average height and grey hair. He wore faded blue overalls and carried a heavy toolbox. "Ma'am? Oliveira? I'm Anthony, the plumber." I showed him the stain on the ceiling and took him up to the bathroom. He examined everything with professional attention. "I need to check the pipes in the basement too," he said, "to understand the complete system." I showed him the way and returned to the kitchen. While waiting, I distractedly prepared lunch. Julie was still asleep, her schedule completely upside down since she moved back, and Michael was at work at the construction company. Almost an hour later, I heard Anthony's footsteps coming up the basement stairs. When I turned around to ask if he had found the problem, the words died in my throat. His face was pale, and his hands were trembling slightly. "Ma'am, can we sit down for a moment?" he asked, with a strained voice that didn't match the calm professionalism he had shown before. I sat down at the kitchen table, confused. "Did you find something serious with the plumbing?" Anthony took off his glasses, nervously cleaning them before looking at me with a grave expression. "Mrs. Oliveira, what I found in your basement isn't a plumbing issue." He paused, as if carefully choosing his words. "There's something installed down there that shouldn't be, something that was deliberately put in." A chill ran down my spine. "What kind of thing?" "A system connected to your house's ventilation, specifically the duct leading to your bedroom." I shook my head, not understanding. "It must be part of the remodel we did 2 years ago. Michael hired a crew to renovate the bathroom and part of the ventilation system." Anthony leaned forward, lowering his voice. "Ma'am, have you noticed any strange symptoms over the last few months? Unusual fatigue, frequent headaches, dizziness, brain fog?" The question took me by surprise. "Well, yes. I've been feeling more tired lately, and the headaches are almost daily. But I'm a 68-year-old woman. Those things are normal at my age." "And your children? Are they showing the same symptoms?" I thought for a moment. "No, they seem to be in good health." Anthony took a deep breath. "Ma'am, I need you to come down to the basement with me. There's something you need to see with your own eyes." We went down the creaking basement stairs. The familiar smell of earth and dampness greeted me, along with stacked boxes and family memories stored for decades. Anthony turned on his flashlight and guided me behind the furnace, where I rarely went. "Right there," he pointed. At first I didn't see anything abnormal, just pipes and connections that seemed to be part of the house's normal system. Then, Following the beam of the flashlight, I noticed something different. A series of thinner tubes connected to a metal box the size of a toaster. "What is that?" I asked, moving closer. "A device for releasing substances into the air. See these tubes? They go up and connect directly to your bedroom's ventilation system." Anthony pointed to small reservoirs with different colored liquids and blinking digital timers. "This system is programmed to release controlled doses of these substances while you sleep." "Substances? What kind of substances?" "From what I can tell, they are toxic compounds designed to cause gradual symptoms that mimic natural illnesses. Fatigue, mental confusion, weakening of the immune system. Over time, the effects would become more severe." I touched one of the tubes with trembling fingers. It was warm, active, working. "Are you telling me someone installed a system to poison me?" "Yes, ma'am. And whoever did this knows this house very well and has unrestricted access to it. It's not the work of a burglar." The reality hit me like a punch to the stomach. "My kids?" I whispered, my voice almost gone. Anthony nodded gravely. "This system requires specific technical knowledge and considerable time to install. Your son works in civil construction, correct? He would know how to do this." The pieces started to fit together in a horrifying way. Michael's insistence on remodeling the bathroom 2 years ago. Julie's return coinciding with the onset of my most severe symptoms. The fact that both of them seemed to monitor my schedule with unusual interest. "How long do you think this system has been operating?" I asked, feeling nauseous. "By the wear on the components, I'd say at least 8 months. Exactly when my age-related headaches started." "Ma'am," Anthony continued, "there's one more thing you need to know. This system is programmed to gradually increase the concentration of the substances. Without intervention, the effects could become fatal in the next few months." I leaned against the cold basement wall, feeling my legs buckle. My own children, the ones I cradled, fed, nursed when they were sick, the ones I comforted when they cried, the very ones who ate at my table every night while slowly killing me. "Why?" I murmured, more to myself than to him. "That's a question only they can answer," Anthony said softly. "But ma'am, I need you to listen to me carefully. Take your things and leave this house immediately. Don't tell your children anything." We went upstairs in silence. My mind was racing frantically, trying to deny the undeniable. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe this system had another purpose. Maybe Anthony was wrong. But deep down, I knew he wasn't. The symptoms, the timing, the changes in my children's behavior, it all fit together like a macabre puzzle. "Money?" I whispered when we reached the kitchen. "It has to be about the money." Anthony looked at me questioningly. "When my husband passed away, he left a considerable life insurance policy. Plus, I have savings and this house, which has appreciated a lot in the last few years." I paused, calculating. "Close to $7 million in total." "A sum that could motivate desperate people," Anthony nodded. "But they're not desperate. Michael has a good job at the construction company. And Julie," I stopped, realizing I didn't really know what my children's finances were like. Michael worked a lot. He came home late and left early, always tired, always tense. Julie barely left her room, except to get food or go out without saying where. We hadn't had a deep conversation in months. "Mrs. Oliveira," Anthony interrupted my thoughts. "There's no time for speculation now. You need to get out of this house before they get back." As if summoned by his words, I heard footsteps upstairs. Julie was awake. "Mum," she called. "Who are you talking to?" I exchanged a look of panic with Anthony. It's the plumber, honey, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. He's just finishing up. I'll be down in a minute. Go to your room, Anthony whispered urgently. Take important documents and some clothes. Nothing else. I'll wait for you here. I went up the stairs on trembling legs, praying not to run into Julie in the hallway. Luckily, her door was closed. I heard the shower running. She was in the bathroom. In my bedroom, I looked at the space that had been my refuge for decades. Now, knowing what I knew, it seemed like a torture chamber. The air I breathed every night was laden with poison, deliberately placed there by my own children. With shaky hands, I opened the safe hidden at the back of the closet and took out my documents. ID, bank cards, deeds. I put some essential clothes in a small bag. My eyes fell on a photograph on the dresser, me with Michael and Julie last Thanksgiving, all smiling. At that moment, they were already poisoning me. I put the photo in the bag too, not because I wanted to remember that moment, but as a cruel reminder of the betrayal I suffered. When I went downstairs, Julie was already in the kitchen, casually chatting with Anthony. She was wearing a robe and her hair was wet. She looked so normal, so harmless. So it was just an old rusty pipe, she was asking, pouring herself a coffee. Exactly, Anthony replied professionally. It's all sorted out now. Julie turned around and noticed my bag. You going out, Mum? The seemingly innocent question paralyzed me. How could I answer when every word could betray me? Yes, I managed to say. I have some errands to run. Want me to come with you? I don't have anything planned for today. The idea of being alone with Julie outside the house terrified me. No need, dear. It's just boring bank stuff. Anthony stood up, taking his toolbox. Well, my job here is done. That'll be $600 for the service. I paid him, our hands briefly touching in the process. His eyes conveyed a clear message. It's time to go. Are you okay, Mum? Julie asked, watching me intently. You look a little pale. I'm great, I lied, forcing a smile. Just a little tired. You have been very tired lately. Maybe you should see a doctor. The irony of her words, feigning concern for symptoms she herself was causing, almost made me lose control. Maybe I will, I replied, heading toward the door. I love you, Mum, Julie said, with a sweet smile that, once, would have warmed my heart, but now sounded like a stab. I love you too, I replied automatically, wondering when those words became empty for her. I left the house that had been my home for 40 years, unsure if I would ever return. Anthony guided me to his pickup truck parked on the curb. Get in, he said, opening the passenger door. We need to get out of here before your daughter suspects anything. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror at the house I loved, now transformed into a death trap by my own children. Where are we going? I asked, gripping my bag like a lifeline. Somewhere safe where we can figure out the next steps, Anthony responded. There's a diner a few miles from here in Boston. We can talk there about how to proceed and call the authorities. The authorities? The police? Yes, Ma'am. What we found constitutes attempted murder. This is not something we can resolve alone. Murder! The word echoed in my head. My children weren't just ungrateful or greedy. They were potential killers. Killers who lived with me, ate my food, pretended to care about me while meticulously carrying out my death. I can't believe this is really happening, I murmured, watching the familiar streets that now seemed strange and hostile. I know this is difficult to process, Anthony said gently, but you made the right decision leaving that house. What if we're wrong? What if there's another explanation? Anthony glanced at me briefly before refocusing on the road. Ma'am, I installed ventilation systems for 15 years before becoming a plumber. What I saw in your basement is not a mistake or a misunderstanding. It's a device specifically designed to disperse chemical substances into your bedroom's air. There is no innocent explanation for that. Deep down, I knew he was right, but my mind kept desperately searching for an alternative reality where my children weren't monsters. How much time do you think I had left? I asked quietly. Based on the timers and the concentration, I'd say 2 or 3 more months, at most. Your symptoms would have progressively worsened until it looked like a natural illness. You would have developed severe respiratory problems and organ failure. You would have died slowly, and no one would suspect a thing. Tears rolled down my face. How could 2 people plan something like that? How could they look their own mother in the eyes every day, feigning love while killing her? I don't have an answer for that, Mom. But I know that people capable of this aren't just going to give up if they're confronted. If they find out you know the truth, they might accelerate their plans or try something more direct. A chill ran down my spine. Do you think they'll come after me? It depends on how desperate they are for the money and how committed they are to the original plan. We arrived at a cozy diner in downtown Philadelphia, far from my neighborhood. Anthony chose a table in the back, away from the windows and near an exit. When I realized he was strategically thinking about escape routes, the gravity of my situation hit me again. A young waitress approached to take our order. 2 coffees, please, Anthony said, and something sweet for the lady. She's had a rough day. While we waited for the coffees, my cell phone vibrated. It was a text from Julie. Mum, is everything okay? You've been gone a while. I showed the message to Anthony. Answer normally, he advised. Say you're at the bank and the line is taking forever. I wrote the reply with trembling fingers. Almost immediately, another message arrived. Want us to pick you up later? Michael will be home in 1 hour. They're already monitoring your movements, Anthony observed, worry evident in his voice. This means we need to act fast. The waitress returned with our coffees and a slice of chocolate cake that I hadn't ordered, but for which I was grateful. I needed the sugar to process all that information. What do we do now? I asked, trying to stay calm. First, we need concrete evidence, Anthony replied. I can go back to your house this afternoon under the pretense of checking for additional leaks. I'll take detailed pictures of the device and, if possible, samples of the chemicals. Then we'll call the police with enough evidence so they can't deny it. And where do I stay in the meantime? Do I have any relatives or friends I can stay with? I thought about my options. My sister lived in another state, and we hadn't spoken in years. I had some close friends, but involving them in this seemed dangerous. A hotel, I suggested finally. Anonymous, far from my neighborhood. Anthony nodded and took a card from his pocket, writing a number on the back. This is my personal number. Call immediately if your children try to contact you persistently or if you notice anything strange. I took the card, feeling it like a lifeline. Anthony, why are you helping me? You don't even know me. He took a sip of his coffee before answering, his eyes fixed on a distant point beyond the window. I lost my mother 5 years ago. She died of aggressive cancer, but months before the diagnosis, she complained of strange symptoms that doctors couldn't explain. Extreme fatigue, respiratory issues, generalized weakness. He paused, taking a deep breath. Only after she died did we discover that my brother was tampering with her medication and stealing her savings. Oh my God, I exclaimed in horror. I couldn't save my mother because I didn't see the signs in time. But when I saw what was happening in your house, I knew I had a second chance to make things right. His words moved me deeply. A stranger risking his time and safety to help an older woman he had just met. Was your brother arrested? Yes, but only for the theft. When we discovered the medication tampering, it was too late to prove it contributed to her death. Is that why you want to gather solid evidence now? Exactly. I don't want your children to escape the consequences of what they did. My cell phone vibrated again. This time it was Michael. Mum, Julie said you left hours ago. Is everything okay? Where are you? I replied that I was at the bank and would do some shopping afterwards. The reply came immediately. What bank? I can come pick you up. His insistence on knowing exactly where I was started to seem less like concern and more like control. They're getting anxious, Anthony said, looking at the messages. They probably realized you've been gone longer than normal. What do I tell them? Keep the answers vague but reassuring. Say you're fine and you'll be back soon. I did as he suggested, but the replies kept coming, each more insistent. Then Michael called. Answer, Anthony instructed. But be careful what you say. Hello, honey, I replied, trying to sound casual. Where are you, Mum? His voice was strained, controlled. Julie said you left with a bag. Are you staying out tonight? No, dear. I just took some documents to sort out at the bank. What documents? What bank? His interrogation was making me nervous. Why so many questions, Michael? I'm an adult woman. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Sorry, Mum. It's just that you've been acting strangely lately. Julie and I are worried about your health. The irony of his words, feigning concern for symptoms he himself was causing, made my stomach turn. I'm perfectly fine, I replied firmly. Maybe you should see a doctor. At your age, it's important to get regular checkups. I understood their strategy. They wanted me to go to the doctor to document my symptoms, creating a medical history that supported the idea that I was developing a natural illness. I'll think about it, I said, wanting to end the conversation. I'll see you later. I love you, Mum. The words, once precious, now sounded empty and manipulative. I love you too, I replied automatically, realizing it was the second time that day I'd lied about that. After hanging up, I noticed my hands were shaking violently. Anthony covered them with his, a comforting gesture that surprised me. You're not alone in this, he said gently. We'll sort everything out. We paid for the coffees and went to a modest hotel in downtown Miami. Anthony spoke to the desk clerk, booking a room in his own name so no one could track me. Room 215, he said, handing me the key. Lock the door and don't open it for anyone but me. If you need anything, call room service. When are you going back to my house? In about 2 hours. I'll say I received a complaint from another customer about a similar issue and want to verify that the fix at your house is working properly. It's a common practice in my profession, so it won't raise suspicion. Before leaving, Anthony hesitated. Ma'am, I need to ask you something. Do you have a will? Are your children the sole beneficiaries? Yes, everything is divided equally between Michael and Julie. He nodded gravely. That confirms the motive. Without you, they would immediately inherit a considerable sum. I remembered a specific clause. But the will says that if my death is suspicious or the result of a crime, they lose all inheritance rights. Do they know that? I believe so. We discussed the will when my husband passed. That could explain why they chose such an elaborate method. If your death looked natural, the result of a gradual illness, no one would question the will. The calculated coldness of their actions terrified me again. Not only did they plan to kill me, but they also chose a method that would ensure the financial benefits of my death. Anthony, I asked quietly, what kind of people do this? People who have lost all normal emotional connection. people for whom money has become more important than any family tie. But I raised them to be good people. I gave them love, education, values. Sometimes, ma'am, people turn into something completely different than what we expected. Circumstances, pressures, bad choices can change someone profoundly. After Anthony left, I was alone in the hotel room, the silence oppressive around me. For decades, I was used to the constant noise of an inhabited house. TV on, footsteps on the stairs, doors opening and closing. Now, in the silence of this strange room, my mind had space to fully process the betrayal I suffered. I sat on the bed and took out my cell phone. I had 5 new messages, 3 from Julie and 2 from Michael, each more urgent than the last. "Mum, it's already 4 p.m. Where are you? Michael is asking about you. He's worried. Please reply. We're getting really anxious. Mum, call immediately. We're going to start looking for you if you don't answer." Each message sent a shiver down my spine. Were they really worried? Or were they starting to suspect their plan had been discovered? I decided to reply vaguely. "I'm fine. The bank was crowded, and then I went shopping. I'll be back soon." Michael's response was instant. "Where exactly are you? We can come pick you up." His insistence on knowing my precise location seemed increasingly sinister. "No need. I got a ride. See you at home." He didn't reply immediately, which was strange. Michael usually responded instantly. That sudden silence made me even more nervous. I lay down on the bed, closing my eyes, trying to remember when everything really began. Were there moments when I should have been suspicious? I remembered a conversation a few months earlier. Michael casually mentioned that I should consider moving to a smaller apartment. "This house is too big for one person, Mom," he said, "and the maintenance must be expensive." At the time, I thought he was worried about my well-being. Now I realized he was probably assessing the property value. I also remembered Julie asking strange questions about my finances. "Do you have enough money for medical expenses when you're older, Mum? Have you thought about what you'll do if you need special care?" I interpreted these questions as normal filial concern, but now I wondered if she was calculating how much money they would have left after my inevitable medical expenses. My phone rang, startling me. It was Michael again. "Mum." His voice sounded cold, controlled. "We called the bank. They said you weren't there today." My heart raced. They were checking my story. "I went to another bank," I improvised. "The one on Main Street." "Which branch exactly? Why this interrogation, Michael? Since when do I have to account for my movements?" "Since you started lying to us." The direct accusation left me speechless for a moment. "I'm not lying," I finally replied. "I just need some time to myself." "Time to yourself or time with the plumber?" The question took me completely by surprise. "What do you mean by that?" "Julie saw you two leaving together. You got into his pickup truck. Where did he take you?" So they knew. Julie must have looked out the window when we left. The fear intensified inside me. "He gave me a ride to the bank," I tried to explain. "More lies." Michael's voice grew even colder. "Mum, you've been acting very strangely lately. First, constant forgetfulness. Then, mental confusion. Now, lies and erratic behavior. We're genuinely worried about your mental health." I realized their strategy. They were constructing a narrative where I was a confused, paranoid old woman, possibly with dementia. If I accused them of poisoning, it would just be one more sign of my supposedly deteriorating mental condition. "I am perfectly lucid, Michael." "Then why run off with a stranger? Why lie about where you've been? Why not answer our calls? My cell phone vibrated again with each question that sounded reasonable coming from a concerned son. But I knew the grim truth behind that concern. Michael, I'm going to hang up now, I said firmly. We'll talk when I get home. Mum, wait. He tried to protest, but I ended the call. Almost immediately, Julie texted me. Mum, Michael is very upset. We need to know where you are. Please tell us the truth. My head was throbbing. Everything I built over decades, the family I loved, the home I cared for so tenderly, was crumbling in a matter of hours. I silenced my cell phone and put it in my bag, unable to deal with any more messages or calls. The hotel room, despite its impersonal neutrality, offered a security that my own house no longer provided. I picked up the Thanksgiving photograph I brought with me. The smiles on my children's faces looked different now, calculating, false. How did I not realize it before? How did I not notice the coldness in Michael's eyes, or the detachment in Julie's smile? Maybe it's because love is blind. Maybe it's because, as a mother, I always saw the best in them, even when the truth was right in front of my eyes. 2 hours passed without news from Anthony. The worry grew inside me. He should have contacted me after returning from my house. Something was wrong. Despite my reluctance, I turned my cell phone back on. 10 missed calls and 23 messages. The most recent one, from Michael, sent only 5 minutes ago, chilled my blood. Your plumber friend came back. We're having an interesting conversation. My first instinct was to call Anthony, but I stopped before pressing the button. What if Michael had taken his cell phone? Or worse, what if they had done something to him? The idea that my children could hurt someone was unthinkable just hours ago. Now it seemed terribly possible. I dialed the police number with trembling fingers. Emergency. What is your problem? A female voice asked. I need to report an attempted murder, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Ma'am, can you speak louder? Who is trying to murder whom? My children, I replied, the reality of the words hitting me again. My children are trying to kill me slowly. We found a device in my basement, releasing toxic substances into my bedroom's ventilation system. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Ma'am, what is your full name and current location? Mary Oliveira. I'm at the Central Hotel, room 215. All right. And where are your children now? At my house. They may have done something to the man who discovered the device. A plumber named Anthony. Please stay where you are, ma'am. We'll send a patrol car to the hotel and another to your residence. Do not leave your room and do not contact your children. After hanging up, I sat on the edge of the bed, shaking. It had really happened. I had reported my own children to the police, the people I brought into the world, loved unconditionally, sacrificed everything to raise. Now I was turning them over to the authorities. 15 minutes later, firm knocks on the door announced the police's arrival. 2 officers, a middle-aged woman and a younger man, listened intently as I recounted the day's events. I showed them the insistent messages from my children. I explained about the device in the basement, the gradual deterioration of my health, Anthony's help. Mrs. Oliveira, the police officer said, after writing everything down, another team is at your residence right now. We managed to contact Mr. Anthony. He's fine, but quite shaken. Apparently, your children questioned him when he returned to gather evidence. Did they hurt him? I asked, horrified. Not physically, but there were threats. Mr. Anthony managed to leave the house under the pretense of fetching tools from his pickup truck and immediately contacted the police. The relief I felt knowing Anthony was safe quickly gave way to a new worry. And now? We need you to accompany us to the police station to formally file the report. Meanwhile, a forensic team is checking your house. If they find evidence of the device you mentioned, your children will be detained for questioning. What if they've already removed everything? The police officer exchanged a look with her colleague. Mr. Anthony informed us that upon returning to the residence, he noticed signs that the device had been hastily dismantled. However, he also believes there will be chemical traces that forensic technicians will be able to detect. At the police station, I spent hours giving a statement detailing every aspect of the situation. The first symptoms, my children's strange questions about my finances, their insistence on monitoring my movements, and finally Anthony's discovery in the basement. As I spoke, a part of me still couldn't believe all of this was happening. How could a 68-year-old mother be at a police station reporting her own children for attempted murder? It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Around 10 p.m., a detective entered the interrogation room with a serious expression. "Mrs. Oliveira, we have news from the forensic team." My heart almost stopped as I awaited the verdict. "They found significant chemical residues in the ventilation ducts leading to your room, consistent with substances that, when continuously inhaled, can cause the symptoms you described. They also located dismantled parts of the device that were hastily hidden at the bottom of a box in the basement." Silent tears rolled down my face. A part of me still hoped that it was all a terrible misunderstanding, that my children were innocent, that there was another explanation. Now that hope was irrevocably destroyed. "Your children are being held for questioning," the detective continued. "So far, both deny any involvement, claiming that you have shown signs of paranoia and mental confusion in recent months. Just as I feared, they were using the symptoms they caused against me. And what about proof that they were the ones who installed the device?" The detective hesitated. "That may be harder to prove directly." However, he opened a folder and placed a photograph on the table. It was a page from a notebook in Julie's unmistakable handwriting. "We found this hidden among the books in your daughter's room. It appears to be a detailed record of your symptoms over time, with notes on dosage adjustments." I looked at the sheet of paper, feeling nauseous as I saw entries like, "September 27, Mum slept 12 hours straight, nighttime dose increase working," and May 15th, complained of dizziness and confusion, maybe reduce a bit not to raise suspicion. It was a methodical clinical documentation of my planned deterioration, like a scientific experiment, as if I weren't a human being, much less their mother. "This is—" I couldn't finish the sentence. "Pretty incriminating evidence," the detective completed, "coupled with statements from neighbors confirming the bathroom remodel 2 years ago, overseen by your son, and his technical knowledge in the construction area. We have a solid case." The first month after my children's arrest passed in a blur. I was subjected to a battery of medical exams that confirmed the presence of toxins in my body. The doctors were shocked to discover that I was being slowly poisoned in my own home, by my own children. "It's a miracle you survived," the toxicologist said. "Prolonged exposure to these substances could have caused permanent organ damage or even death." As the toxins were eliminated from my body, my health improved drastically. The headaches disappeared, the mental confusion cleared, my energy returned. Physically, I was recovering. Emotionally, the wound seemed impossible to heal. I couldn't go back to my house. The memories were too painful. Every corner of that place now held the echo of betrayal. I put the property up for sale and temporarily moved to a small rented apartment. During the investigation, the complete truth came to light. Michael had gambling debts totaling more than $2 million. Compulsive gambling that he hid from everyone, taking out loans from lenders who began to threaten him physically and financially. Julie, for her part, discovered she would receive nothing in the divorce after her ex-husband proved her infidelity with concrete evidence. She was practically broke and desperate. Together, my children calculated that my death would give them immediate access to almost $7 million between life insurance, savings fees, and the value of the house. Because they knew a suspicious death would invalidate the will, they planned something that looked natural. A gradual deterioration attributable to old age, culminating in organ failure that no doctor would question. The idea of slow poisoning was Julie's. With her knowledge of chemistry, she meticulously planned which substances to use and in what concentrations to simulate a natural decline. Michael, using his civil construction knowledge, installed the system during the bathroom remodel. The trial was a nightmare. Sitting in the courtroom, day after day, hearing horrific details about how my own children conspired to kill me, I felt as if I were living someone else's life. This couldn't be my reality. It couldn't be my family. The hardest thing was facing their gaze. Michael maintained an impassive expression throughout the process, as if he were beyond any emotion. Julie alternated between dramatic tears when the jury was looking, and cold, calculating glances when she thought no one was paying attention. Anthony testified in detail about his discovery in the basement and the conversations he overheard between my children. His testimony was crucial to the case. He became my pillar of strength during those dark days, a constant, comforting presence. "How are you feeling today?" was my frequent answer. "You still have your life, your health, your dignity. They couldn't take that away from you," he would say gently. After 3 weeks of trial, the verdict finally arrived. Guilty of premeditated attempted murder. Michael was sentenced to 20 years in prison with no possibility of parole for 15 years. Julie received 18 years with a possibility of parole after 12. When the judge announced the sentences, I felt a confusing mix of emotions. Relief for the justice done, but also a deep pain knowing that my children would spend much of their lives behind bars. As horrible as what they planned was, a part of me, the mother I would always be, suffered for them. After the trial, I finally sold the house where I lived for 40 years in New York City. With the money, I bought a small apartment in the coastal town of San Diego, California, hundreds of miles away, where no one knew me and where I could start over without the weight of painful memories. Anthony continued to be present in my life, first as a supportive friend, then as something more. Not a traditional romance. We both carried scars too deep for that, but a comforting companionship based on mutual respect and a shared understanding of how unpredictable and cruel life can be. "Some people go their whole lives without knowing the true face of those they love," he once said, as we walked along the beach. "You faced that truth and survived. That requires extraordinary courage." Courage wasn't how I would define myself. In my darkest moments, I questioned where I had failed as a mother. What could I have done differently? What signs did I miss? Was I ever truly loved by my children? Or was I always just a means to an end, a source of resources to be exploited? 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from Julie from prison. For days, I left it unopened on the table, unable to find the courage to read it. When I finally opened it, I found pages of seemingly sincere apologies, explanations about her financial desperation, promises of genuine repentance. "I realized the monster I became," she wrote. "I don't expect your forgiveness, Mum. I just want you to know that I understand the gravity of what we did, and I deeply regret it." I replied with a short letter, wishing her the best, but making it clear that forgiveness, if it ever came, would take a very long time. Michael never wrote. A part of me died in that basement, the moment I saw the device designed to kill me. The trusting, loving mother who thought she knew her children inside and out, who thought family love was unconditional and unbreakable, she was gone forever. In her place emerged a more cautious, wiser woman, who understood in the most painful way possible that sometimes the biggest betrayals come from those we trust the most. That shared blood doesn't guarantee love or loyalty. That true family is defined by actions, not by genetics. Today, at 70, I've found relative peace. My health is fully recovered. I take daily walks on the San Diego beach. I participate in a local book club. I cultivate a small garden on my apartment balcony. Anthony and I have dinner together twice a week, sharing stories and laughter. Sometimes, when I look at the ocean, I think about how much life can change in a single day, how a seemingly harmless water leak can uncover a deadly conspiracy, how a stranger can become a savior, while those who should love us unconditionally can become our worst enemies. The pain will never completely disappear. On birthdays, holidays, special moments, I feel the absence of my children, not as they are now, but as they were before, or as I believed they were. However, I learned to live with that pain, to integrate it as part of my story without letting it define me. The plumber who came to fix a leak ended up saving much more than a damaged ceiling. He saved my life. And he taught me that, sometimes, salvation comes from the most unexpected places, while threats can hide where we least expect them. If there's one lesson I can share from this terrible experience, it's that we must value people for their actions, not for their titles or blood ties. True family are those who protect us when we are vulnerable, not those who exploit our vulnerability. True love is manifested in daily acts of kindness and respect, not in empty words or obligations imposed by kinship. And perhaps most importantly, we must trust our intuition, that inner voice that whispers when something isn't right, even when we can't explain exactly what. If I had paid attention to the small signs, the subtle changes in my children, the strange questions, the averted glances, maybe I could have avoided coming so close to death. When people ask me about my children, I simply reply that we are estranged. It's easier than explaining the full truth and seeing the horror and pity in the eyes of others. To the world, I'm just an older woman living alone by the sea. No one needs to know that I am a survivor of one of the cruelest forms of betrayal. The leak in the ceiling of my old house in New York City revealed much more than a structural problem. It revealed the true nature of the people I thought I knew completely. It revealed the fragility of family relationships when tested by desperation and greed. It revealed that, sometimes, strangers can show more humanity than our own blood. On some nights, I still wake up startled, thinking I heard footsteps in the hallway, or imagining I'm back in that house, breathing poison unknowingly. Trauma leaves marks that time dulls but never completely erases. Other survivors of domestic violence tell me that this constant sense of alertness, this difficulty trusting again, is normal, that it's part of the healing process. That one day, perhaps, I'll be able to sleep without checking twice if the doors are locked, or without analyzing the behavior of people around me for signs of falsehood. Anthony understands this better than anyone. He lost his mother to his own brother and carries a guilt that resonates with mine, the guilt of not noticing the signs in time. Maybe that's why we connected so deeply. We both know the specific pain of being betrayed by those who should protect us. "You know what helped me keep going?" he asked me once. Realizing that despite everything that happened, there are still good people in the world. That for every person capable of betrayal, there are others capable of extraordinary acts of kindness. I try to hold on to that truth on the bad days. I remember that on the same day I discovered my children were planning my death, I also discovered that a stranger risked his safety to save my life. Life is like that. light and shadow intertwined. The same world that harbors monsters also harbors heroes. The same existence that brings us unimaginable pain also offers moments of unexpected beauty. When I sit on my balcony watching the sunset in San Diego, I feel gratitude for the second chance I received, for being able to breathe without fear, for having discovered the truth before it was too late, for having found a strength I didn't know I possessed. I don't know what the future holds for my children, if they will ever truly repent, if they will ever return to my life in some form. I don't know if I will ever fully forgive them. What I do know is that, despite everything I lost, I gained something precious: the truth. Painful as it is, the truth freed me from a slow death and gave me the opportunity to rebuild my life on more authentic foundations. And perhaps that is the final lesson of this terrible story, that sometimes we need to lose everything to discover who we really are, that in the ashes of destruction, we can find seeds of a new beginning, that even after the deepest betrayal, it is possible to find a way back to the light. I am no longer just Mary, the mother of Michael and Julie. I am Mary, a woman who faced the unthinkable and survived. A woman who learned the hard way that family is not defined by blood, but by genuine love and consistent actions. A woman who, thanks to a leak in the ceiling and an observant plumber, gained the opportunity to grow old with dignity and peace. A privilege that my own children tried to deny me. And for that, even on the days when the pain feels unbearable, I am deeply grateful. Now, if you liked this story, click subscribe and tell me in the comments what part left your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to join as a member to get access to exclusive videos I don't post here. I'll see you there.